Welcome back to Film Bites. I'm Jack the Lad.
I'm Andy the Dad.
And we're here with a very, very special episode, I think.
5 Nights at Freddy's.
Now, this is one where I already had a bit of a short review on it. It was a minute review for the shorts. Obviously, I haven't gone into too much detail about it. It was kind of structured in a limited amount of time, but just giving you a kind of direct thought of my process and how I thought the movie was. I already said that as a fan, I'm automatically liking this movie. It was a joy I had. Honestly, a really good time because I went with friends that are also fans of the game. I was in a cinema where actually people were being more engaged with it. I think it was the fans that made it also quite elevated in response of things. And seeing it a second time, obviously those reactions weren't quite there. But it was good to see it with you. Because I think it was very interesting to see what you thought of it.
Yes, I mean, it was a quiet cinema, which was probably a good thing.
Yes.
We saw it on Halloween, which is the best time to see any kind of picture like this.
Absolutely.
To be perfectly honest with you, having seen some really quite savage reviews, I was really pleasantly surprised by it. And I was quite shocked to be pleasantly surprised by it. Now, full disclosure, you've been playing these games for years, and you have shown me little bits on YouTube and trailers, and you're pretty much addicted to this title, let's be honest.
No, there's no argument there. I have too much of an obsession of points. And what keeps me going back is that lore.
Yeah. I mean, is it a perfect movie? No, it's not a perfect movie, but it's a lot of fun in places. I thought initially it was a little slow to get into where we needed to be. I thought the acting was fairly sound. I don't think there was anybody that let it down. The actual kind of vibe from the film was instantly creepy. It was well shot. Had a budget of 20 million at the estimate at the time of going to record, and to be honest, I think they did a really solid job with it. You can see that they invested quite a lot of money in the animatronics, and that I think is to its benefit. I think the initial opening, I think the music and score at the beginning is wonderfully creepy. It reminded me an awful lot of the Poltergeist theme song, which again is creepy as hell. And the film's opening, I think it did exactly the job that you required it to do. It wasn't bells and whistles. We've obviously seen Willy's Wonderland in the past.
Yes, which the rumours are, and it's been heavily talked about, that Willy's Wonderland was a scrapped script from Warner Bros., I believe, for the initial idea of Five Nights at Freddy's, which was a kind of cult taking over something to do with Freddy's, a murderer that had his soul trapped in the animatronic's body. And it kind of just... It felt messy because it was almost like they had more than one killer and they wanted to make this a whole thing, and their idea was, how do we make it interesting? Well, maybe not horror, let's do it action thriller with Nick Cage that doesn't speak whatsoever, which, by the way, I do like the idea of it, but it wasn't executed particularly well.
I think it was Nicolas Cage being Nicolas Cage again, and to be honest with you, he chewed up the furniture on it, and that was perfectly fine for this particular film. But as a film, it was a bit awful.
Yes.
This one, it was more patient. I thought the story was solid enough, but then I did have that knowledge from the games and what you've told me in sort of the lore of the game, and so that kind of thing. But I just liked what it did. I liked the slow build of the story. I liked the continuity of what happens in Mike's dreams. I won't give too much about that, because if you're seeing this film, I think it's quite an interesting exploration.
Oh, absolutely.
I thought they were very well shot. I thought the sequences were quite creepy, and I thought the coming in and out of the storyline of what had happened to him in his past was an interesting dimension to add.
Oh, definitely.
The main crux of the story, I kind of think, from the bits and pieces that I've seen of the game, I wanted a little bit more of those in the pizzeria.
Oh, I see.
Because I kind of felt that they really could have used the security footage a little bit more. How, you're looking left and right and you're hearing all the clicks and all that kind of stuff. I think they could have used that a little bit more to generate suspense.
I have to agree. I think some of the best scenes that came out of it were the scenes where you see Bonnie and Chica staring up at the camera. Something's not quite right, and of course it isn't. Yeah, I think from an objective view, it's like I understand the cameras so well in these games because, the whole point is that the game is literally a security guard in an office, POV perspective. You're looking left and right, turning on lights, closing doors, flipping up a camera just to make sure that the animatronics aren't getting close to your door. That's the game. And the only times where there was a story was when you had these hallucinations of newspapers.
Yes.
But that's it. So what they're working off of is actually fairly simple, but obviously they have future, games and novels and books to work off of as well. So they're not only doing the first game, they're also adapting loads of things and Easter eggs and little nods to the fans as well. So they're putting a whole lot into this movie.
But I did kind of miss that simple element of what the game is.
Exactly, yeah. Which is why, yeah.
Where all your jump scares come from.
Exactly. I think without the camera, it kind of took away a little bit from what the whole objective is.
Yeah.
But I understood the direction they were taking with this.
Yeah, I mean, it was suitably creepy, but I think it could have done with a bit more of those jumps, and it didn't really have a lot of them.
Oh.
There is no way in the world that this should have been a 15.
No, there was probably one silhouette shot that was particularly... put it this way, when I first saw it, I laughed because it was like, whoa, wasn't quite expecting that. And you did the exact same response, which was very nice to know that was also a kind of visceral response to that as well. But yeah, apart from that, I don't think it was a 15, and the amount of people in the UK that have been turned away from this movie, when you realise what's actually in the movie, you think, well, what made it a 15? Because actually, we've seen worse in 12As before.
Definitely.
If you look at Kong Skull Island, that was a 12A. Quite literally depicts I think it's some kind of pterodactyl-like creature pulling apart someone on screen. Yes, it's a silhouette, but what's the difference?
Yeah.
Because it's a silhouette in that case. And you've also got movies like Multiverse of Madness that quite literally shows, spoiler alerts if you haven't seen that movie, Black Bolt's mouth disappearing and his head blowing up.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, so we've got that's allowed. Also, his eyes were dripping blood.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas this silhouette had no blood. I think there was a smear shot, but that was it.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why that was made a 15.
Yeah, and I really think that probably, whilst I know that the film's done extremely well in box office, there's no doubt about that, but I think it could have done even better. And I think if also they'd had a little bit more faith with it, they wouldn't have put it so quickly onto Peacock for streaming in the US. And I know it's coming over here on the streaming services on pay-per-view. The thing is, when it goes on pay-per-view, most of the parents will let the 12-year-olds...
Oh, they'll watch it.
They'll watch it.
Yeah, and the thing is, actually, if it was just a 12A here, like it is PG-13 in the States, actually you can get away with a lot. And like you put it, actually, when we were coming out of the cinema, it's a perfect way for a child who wants to kind of get into horror.
Yeah.
It's a little step.
There's nothing out and out savage in it. It tells a nice creepy story in a very creepy way. It's a simple story and it does go a little bit all over the place at times. But then read any Stephen King book and it has elements that go all over the place.
I'll be honest,
not every one of them's perfect.
Step into the franchise and that is literally the entire franchise. So as a Five Nights at Freddy's fan, when someone says to me, the movie's not good, it's too convoluted, yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
And I'm probably going to be fine with that.
And I can see... From a fan service point of view, it did an excellent job of a lot of the details in there.
Unbelievably so. Like, there are things that you wouldn't have noticed. Because obviously, if I may say, you're going into it with a more casual view, which
definitely.
I'm so appreciative to actually see it with someone that's more casual, because it helps me understand where my barriers are with things. Because I am going to be hypocritical. I'm going to have things where I'll know things already and I'll automatically love it, but I need to have that kind of leash, if you will, to just let me know, no, I wouldn't have understood that without the books or the games. But that's what helps, because, seeing this with you was great, simply because it's more of a casual thing. You're a horror fan out and out.
Yeah.
And it isn't particularly horror.
No.
I think it's a bit wacky, if you will, but I don't mind that. It's a lot of fun.
Well, we've just been watching some of the episodes of the new Goosebumps series, and to be perfectly honest with you, there's a lot of elements of this that could have been a Goosebumps episode.
Which, if you read the books of Five Nights at Freddy's, they feel goosebumps.
Yeah.
The parents not believing you, the child always having some kind of issue. Yeah, it's always in line with it.
And I thought the cast actually was pretty good.
The cast was great.
Yeah, you've got your main actor, and then you've got Matthew Lillard, who he's not in this movie a lot, but when he is in the movie, he makes a difference.
He is literally pulling any attention onto him because he's that interesting of a character. Obviously, we won't go into too much details, but if you're a Five Nights at Freddy's fan and you're listening, you'll know. But if you're not and it's more casual, right out the gate, you'll get a feeling of the character. He's introduced as Steve Raglan, and he's a job counsellor. That's all I'll say. He's just a bit off.
Yeah.
If you've seen Matthew Lillard in other projects such as Scream and Scooby-Doo, you'll know that he has this kind of quirkiness about him that makes him a little strange, but quite enjoyable to watch as well.
Yes.
And because of that, the same thing kind of happens with Steve Raglan, and it's so fun to watch because you can tell that he's enjoying it. There's this kind of riveting sense of, oh, the little thing I just said there, there's a sting to that, but you don't. I understand it, but you don't. And it's building off of that, and it's so interesting. And I think his dynamic in the interview room with Mike, who is played by Josh Hutcherson, to be fair, I thought it was simple, but it worked in the way in which it was played out.
Yeah, quite low key, but did the job.
Yeah, and you can already set the tone from that scene alone, in my opinion. And we've also got great characters as well, like Mike's young sister, if you've played the games. Mike's young sister, Abby. That's new. So automatically I was like, oh, okay, so we're doing something different. This is good.
Which it has to as a film.
Who is played by Piper Rubio, Abby. And she kind of plays a character that's quite, how do we put it? I would say actually quite mysterious, because she doesn't talk a lot, but I think that's because she's a bit awkward. But also, considering the backgrounds of the Schmidts, which is their last names, you can understand why they are as disorganised and dysfunctional as they are. But her character throughout the movie, I think, progresses in such a way that is so interesting.
She's engaging.
And you know what? I think with Hollywood and movies in general, young actors get kind of, if I may say, dumped on a few times. But I genuinely think she did a really good job.
Same.
And I enjoyed her performance because she created scenes that were, should I be uncomfortable or should I be enjoying this? And she would basically direct the scene, in my opinion, to how you should be feeling.
Yeah.
And sometimes it would kind of contrast that as well, which was what was so really intriguing. So it was enjoyable because, again, it's showing innocence in a setting that is really not innocent. I mean, if you know the general basis of the story, it is pretty dark.
I mean, I did love the setting of the pizzeria, and I loved the very 80s vibe about it, which obviously, you know, from the lore has got a big part in the story. Let's talk about the main part of the story, which is they're animatronics.
Yes.
And they are animatronics and not CG.
Well, that's the interesting part. I think the only bit that was CG was the one of the jump scares, which was the cupcake. Mm-hmm. And that's it.
The cupcake was great, by the way.
Oh my god. Put it this way, if you've played the games, I think the cupcake sometimes is a bit funny. They have totally stuck with the funniness of it, but how scary it can be at the same time as well. And I think because it's scary, it's also really funny, and it works. It's such an entertaining animatronic to have, and it's really nice to see how it associates with Chica, because, you know, Chica's holding this cupcake all the time, and it's nice to see it actually do something. I think the only time we've really seen it do something was in the 4th game, just to be nerdy. No, it was genuinely fun.
I thought that the Freddy Fazbear animatronic was great. If a little underused, I thought more of the other ones on screen than Freddy.
I will just say this, every single Five Nights at Freddy's game, the most underutilised character is the guy who's literally in the title. Freddy Fazbear is always the last thought. It's really ironic.
It's strange, isn't it? Because he's the one that is all the merchandise.
Yeah,
everything.
He is the face of everything, yet you don't really know much about him because you care about the other characters more than him.
And I thought the whole movement of them and the eyes and everything, I just thought it was terrific.
Although in a technicality, we did get more screen time with Freddy, if you know what I mean. But yeah.
But I thought overall, I was not expecting much from this film, and I came out with a little smile and thought, you know what, that was all right. It's not going to win any awards, but I certainly think it's going to be a good starting block for the next wave of these features, and I presume we're going to see at least 2 more, if not more, from this franchise.
3-picture deal definitely has been signed. Given the kind of money they're getting at the moment, we're getting a sequel.
I think at time of recording, it's about $123 million that it's got back off its $20 million budget.
I thought it was 170 now.
May well be.
But either way,
Crazy numbers
it's
from a small
done
picture.
incredibly well. And in terms of domestic numbers, it actually outdid Mario in its first day.
That's crazy.
Mario, I believe, had something like 31.7, and then Five Nights at Freddy's had 39.8.
If only they'd had that little bit more faith in it and given it a longer theatrical run.
Yeah. I mean, we've got to say, and just to quickly mention the animatronics again, Jim Henson's Creatures shot. Wow, best decision they made. It is honestly one of the most engaging parts of the movie because the animatronics look so real, because as you were saying earlier, they do use real animatronics and they do use people to dress up in the suits, but that doesn't deter from anything. If anything, it enhances the performance, I think. I mean, Foxy, you can't have a guy under there. There is literally no room because there is an endoskeleton, this metal skeleton, inside of it, visible because of how worn and damaged Foxy actually is. So they are using Foxy, and we've seen it behind the scenes as well. Sometimes he has a crane behind his back, and other times I think they have to do something where it's like he's on a kind of cart, if you will, so he has to be pushed along. I mean, there's a scene in a corridor, which if you've played the games, you'll know.
Yeah.
But the corridor scene, whilst it looks quite cheesy in the 80s sense, which by the way, love it because it's still going for that aesthetic display,
Yeah.
it works. It has that terror factor, and the jaw going up and down, obviously being a kind of animatronic button movement. It works so well, and it's so engaging to see that we can still use practical. And I think Blumhouse has always been an advocate for doing more practical than CG. And this is something that I've always been wanting in horror or storytelling in general, because if you compare big blockbusters, it's always CG. But with Blumhouse, because it has to be lower scale, it's lower scale, so they do practical.
Yeah, I mean, Blumhouse is probably one of the few organisations churning out a lot of horror at the minute, some better than others.
But to be fair with Blumhouse, and I would also like to just to quickly address as well another thing after this, Blumhouse takes on projects that are risky.
Yes.
Because there was a trailer as well before we saw the Five Nights at Freddy's movie where it was primarily set in a pool.
Yes.
And that looked intriguing, I thought.
Yeah, indeed.
But it's stories like that where it's like, initially you would think, if you read that on paper and you were thinking, should I fund this movie? You're probably going to go, well, no, because the idea sounds simple. But actually, it's what you do with that simplicity and how you can enhance. So I think when studios were looking at Five Nights at Freddy's, which is the other point I was getting onto, this is a movie that was 8.5 or 9 years in the making, because it was announced in 2015, a year after its first game. And it's like, okay, we've waited this long and we finally got it, but there's been so many, ups and downs in the project because there was scrap scripts that have been, been made into movies like the Banana Splits and Willy's Wonderland.
Yeah, a good couple of years before its actual release.
And there was plot synopsis being leaked from studios like Warner Brothers. There was a rumour that Disney did something. I don't believe it, but we'll have to see if that ever comes out.
Wasn't Chris Columbus associated?
Yeah, Chris Columbus was involved with Blumhouse as well back in 2018, 2019?
That would have been a different picture.
But then he was fired. So when that happened, people were going, Chris Columbus has been fired? That's wild. And you're just thinking, well, this project's going to be dead.
He should have been a perfect fit, really.
Yeah, but the thing is we've waited 9 long years for this movie. And you know what? It's not perfect. It's a really good start.
It's alright.
And
it's a good start, as you say.
As a fan, obviously, of this franchise, and I'm probably too nerdy and filled with knowledge of this franchise, but it is just something where it's like, when you finally see a project being realised, it's so lovely to see, and the effect it has on the fandom as well. It was huge. I mean, let's be honest. This movie, I think we always had a back and forth debate on it. Would this happen? Probably not. It's probably going to get scrapped at some point because it's impossible. They keep swapping all over the place. But Jason Blum, every time he was on Twitter around Halloween or it was something in an interview, he always teased that they were dangerously close.
Yeah.
And we thought, well, how close is it, Jason? And then when they actually dropped the first teaser, we thought, oh my god, this is actually happening. And we got it.
Yeah.
It's here.
and the set leaked photos and all
Which,
that.
let's be honest, that added to the fire so well.
Yeah, I mean, they did a really good job on the sort of viral stuff. I think they gave a little bit too much away in the trailer.
I mean, there are a lot of jump scares in there that didn't need to be shown.
Yes.
There's one in particular, though, that happens 3 times in the movie that I loved. I won't reveal that, but it's fun. There's fun jump scares, there's fun cameos. There's an enjoyable amount of references and Easter eggs if you're a keen-eyed fan. And if you're a casual fan, or just casual in general, or you want to be seeing a movie around Halloween, this is, in my opinion, the perfect movie. It's a pure popcorn eater. It's not too much to think about. Yes, it's convoluted. Yes, it has some weird story archetypes. It has some brilliant visuals. Emma Tammy, I hope she comes back for the sequel, because I think her directing and cinematography was really outstanding, especially with the Foxy transitions.
Yeah.
You know, with the child and the curtain grows back in the dark.
Yeah, no
Foxy
complaints
comes
from
out.
me. No complaints at all.
But all I have to say is I'm thankful for Jason Blum having the faith in it still, because it must have been, 3 years?
Well, now
4 years?
Now that he's seen his bank
Well, yeah.
go straight up.
Yeah.
He's definitely going to be wanting more from this. So anyway, let's wrap it up.
Sorry, yes. I do this a lot.
So I'm thinking, ultimately, this is a good little film. Ignore a lot of what the critics are out there saying, because they're going to never really get what this film's trying to do anyway. For the gamer nerds out there, I think you're definitely going to have a fun time with this. It isn't perfect, but there's a lot of room to grow and develop for a second feature and third feature. So from my perspective, yes, I enjoyed this. I enjoyed it a lot more than I was expecting to. And if you haven't and you're on the fence about going to see the film, I would say definitely go and watch it at the cinema.
Have to completely agree. I think this is a treat. And you know what? It's just one of those times of the year where it's Halloween. Treat yourself. It's not perfect. We've said that. But it's fun. It's not too much to think about. Just enjoy. Grab some popcorn. Have a good time.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Film Bites Podcast. We hope you enjoyed our discussion about all things film. We love creating content for movie buffs like you. And if you had a good time today, please consider supporting us. We have a little favour. If you liked what you saw and heard, give that like button a gentle tap down there. And if you haven't already, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode from us. We try and publish at least 1 episode each week, so stay in the loop for more movie magic and insightful discussion. Also, don't be shy to ring that notification bell. It's like your personal VIP pass to our latest content. Your support genuinely means the world to us. It's what keeps us going and growing as a podcast. So, from the bottom of our movie-loving hearts, thank you. Remember to follow us on social media and feel free to leave your thoughts and suggestions in the comments. We love hearing from you. Until next time, Film Biters, keep watching, keep loving, and keep sharing your film passion with the world. Thanks for being part of the Film Bites podcast community. See you in the next episode.